questions surrounding forged academic qualifications have been the reasons for the recent disqualification of a governorship ticket in Bayelsa State. The ensuing breakdown of law and order as a result of that Supreme Court judgment has thrown up a number of consequences, including avoidable loss of lives, more and more recriminations among politicians, and the orchestrated invasion of residence and privacy of a Supreme Court judge. It may not be far from over what Nigerians expect to ultimately happen in the oil-rich state, given that the ruling All Progressives Congress, who was at the receiving end of the judgment, has called on the Apex Court to initiate a review. For further analysis on this, we're now being joined from Arise Abuja studio by Hon Ben-Chuks Nwosu, a former Speaker of the Anambra House of Assembly. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, Honorable Nwosu, good morning.
Thank you very much.
Yes, good morning. Well, you have been in politics for quite a while. But what's your take?
Ruben, good to see you again.
Thank you very much. But what's your take on the situation in Bayelsa State with regard to the ruling of the Supreme Court? 24 hours to inauguration, David Lyon and his deputy were shoved aside. The PDP candidate and his deputy were asked to take over. What's your take on that and the aftermath, particularly the protest by some persons, which some people say amounted to an intimidation of Justice Mary Odili?
Thank you very much. It is rather very unfortunate. Bayelsa State happens to be part of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And permit me to say this, and you know yourself, Ruben, you have run for elections. When a law says that a thing should be done this way, A, B, C, D, and you want to be part of that process, you must abide by those rules and regulations and the law governing the action. That is to say, the election that took place in Bayelsa State. Political parties presented candidates. There are rules and regulations that you have to bring in documents to annex to your Form CF 100 coming from INEC.
Honorable Nwosu, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Honorable Nwosu, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Before you joined us, we were taking President Trump's visit in India. But we need to go back quickly now to take President Trump, who I understand is already addressing the media. After that, we'll come back to you.
To purchase more than $3 billion of advanced American military equipment, including Apache and MH-60 Romeo helicopters, the finest in the world. These deals will enhance our joint defense capabilities as our militaries continue to train and operate side by side. In our discussions, Prime Minister Modi and I affirmed our two countries' commitment to protecting our citizens from radical Islamic terrorism.
Well, I mean, very interesting media briefing there, but clearly it shows, growth in Indo-U.S. relations. Over the years, there have been issues with non-alignment of India over the nuclear ambition of India, and as recently as 2018, there was a trade dispute between the United States and India, requiring the United States to file a lawsuit at the World Trade Organization. But, with the warmth that we have seen, it looks like U.S. and India will make better progress in terms of trade relations.
It appears, and I do hope that they come to some agreement with regards to buying oil from Venezuela as well.
Well, but in any case, whatever happened, it looks like President Trump and his team, they're having a good time.
Well, Trump
India
has also said that there's likely to be a trade deal after the elections come, but you can see how heavily he's playing on the politics with this. It's a mass rally.
In any
His entire trip to India, it's a mass rally.
Which we like.
In any case, let's go back to Honorable Ben-Chuks Nwosu. Honorable Nwosu, are you still with us? I apologize. Honorable Nwosu.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we apologize. We just needed to take President Trump's statements in India. But you were talking about the situation in Bayelsa State.
Yes. So as I was saying, I said that when a law provides for the way a thing is to be done, anybody who purports to do anything contrary to the provisions of the law is on his own. And whatever be the repercussions of that, the person bears it by himself. The political parties that ran for election, it was the duty of the state chairman and his ESCO to screen those who were to run for election. And if in the process they overlook the irregularities in the documents of a contestant, they are doing so at their own peril. The law is clear, it's not been amended, it's not been changed, that the governor runs a joint ticket with the running mate. Whatever disease that inflicts the certificates or qualifying documents of the deputy affects the governor. It behooves the governor to ensure that whoever is running with is without blemish. Let me put it to you clearly, and on that I will appeal for the members of the APC in Bayelsa State to explain to the followership, the people of Bayelsa State, the ordinary people who are suffering, who are being beaten, who are dying, who are losing their properties, that they made fundamental, unforgivable mistakes in the process of nomination and screening of the candidates that ran for election. Indeed, before the law, and as far as the law is concerned today, on the day of election, APC was not running for election. APC was not running on the election that day. They were on the ballot. But the Federal High Court in Abuja had disqualified the running mate of David Lyon on the grounds that the man had a coat of many colors, multiple names that you don't know which one is which. And in the end, the court believed on the balance of probability that this man's documents are not to be trusted. That was the judgment just before the election. Unfortunately, the time for them to replace him had passed because everything that INEC does has timelines. You've run for election and you know all these things. So on the day of that election, APC was not running for election. The parties that were running for election was PDP and the rest. Following the decision of the Supreme Court in Modibos case, when two people are contesting about nomination, about who won, about who did not win, and both are found to be diseased, both are set aside, and whoever is healthy following them replaces them. That is what happened.
Thank you, sir.
It also happened in sports, and you are aware of it. Yes.
Thank you, sir. What you're saying, essentially...
Ben Johnson in the Olympics won the Olympic Games 100 meters, but he was found to have taken drugs, and the gold medal went to Carl Lewis. It's like that. It's natural justice, equity, and good conscience.
Thank you, sir. So what you're saying essentially
if the person
is
you
that...
brought forward is disabled, that's it.
Even though the will of the people is clear, the technicalities and the letter of the law should prevail because some defects exist that cannot be cured, is what you're saying. But what is your take now on the PDP's resolve to approach the Supreme Court to review the presidential election, the Kano election, Katsina elections, Kaduna, and Osun State?
This is a new fad. This is a new style. Before, the Supreme Court's judgment is full and final. And nobody had the guts. Rarely has the court been approached to review its judgment because it is the final court. Recently, the infallibility of the Supreme Court has been brought, the possibility that they can be infallible, like they can be fallible, has been brought to the fore. and everybody is dusting up their case files to go back on decided cases of the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court is willing. They are sitting there. They want to hear cases. They will entertain cases. But verily, verily, I say unto you, if I have known the Supreme Court sufficiently for the past 25 years as a practicing lawyer, you will have to convince them first that they have that they can look at the complaints that you came with. That is to say that they have jurisdiction to sit on appeal on their own final judgment. That is one. Two, even when they do, the Supreme Court Act is clear on how far those complaints can be. Were there mistakes in typing, typographical errors, sleight of the hand, and things like that, but not on the substance of the case, not on the substance of the case. That has been the situation. However, I do not want people to belittle the Supreme Court. If those matters are before them, I will be circumspect in discussing the details and the in-depth things about them. I know that what you have in mind is Imo State. I know that what you have in mind is now even the Buhari Atiku case, which I played a little bit of a role in. However, you cannot predict what the Supreme Court will do or say until you appear before them. No two cases are the same. When they appear, we will know. And whatever the Supreme Court will do after that, or whatever the rules will be at that time, will guide future requests for review. But people should not belittle the Supreme Court. I'm not defending them. They are capable of defending themselves. And my position is that if I were one of them and you bring a frivolous review, after I finish, I probably will give the kind of cost that will dissuade people from raising matters in future.
Thank you, sir. And now I'd also like to get your take on what Femi Falana SAN had to say on this matter when he said that the Apex Court made a mistake when they treated a pre-election matter as a post-election case. Now, he went further to refer to Section 133 of the Electoral Act, which states in itself, or stipulates that upon the conclusion of an election and once candidates are declared, any challenge of the conduct of the elections, of the qualification of the candidates, shall be heard and determined by the Election Petition Tribunal. What is your take on this?
Femi Falana is a practicing lawyer, just like I am. He has taken his position. Every judge, every court decides a case based on the evidence before it. If the lawyers on both sides of a matter do not advert the mind of the court to a particular situation, and you want to bring it on a review, for me, it will be like you are introducing a new matter, which ought to have come on before that time. He's entitled to his position. I probably will look at it differently, that when a situation like that arises, where the court did not advert its mind on a thing that should have directed the judgment one way or the other, it is the duty of counsel to have done so. They did not do it, and injustice was occurred. It could be a good ground for a review, and it would be nice to hear what the Supreme Court will say in a situation like that, just like it did in Adegoke Moto's case.
Yes, but let me ask you, I mean, many Nigerians are concerned, and I think Tundu alluded to this earlier, that increasingly elections are now being determined by the judiciary, not necessarily the people. And the question that is floating in the air is, where is the will of the people? What is the value of it? Now, what are the lessons that you think we can learn, at various levels, from all these litigations and the outcomes from the courts in terms of, future elections, in terms of how we can strengthen the electoral system and how we can ensure that the will of the people is better protected?
Thank you very much. You just ran an election, and I realize all of us suffered some impediments. If the impact of money in the electoral process is not limited, this will continue. It could even get worse. If money bags do not stop interfering in the electoral process, the choice of the masses, the choice of the people, always is at risk of being thwarted at the highest level by those who are the political investors. So it is unfortunate that the process is purchasable. It is unfortunate that the level of poverty, the level of enlightenment, the level of political education differs from one constituency to the other. But in the end, the role of money, the role of pressure, the role of people who are living somewhere and determining what happens on the ground somewhere else is increasing. And if you ask me what could be political education, how do we limit the impact of money in the electoral process? If you don't handle that, you've handled nothing. No matter what you say, the average official at the lowest level, at the polling booth level, is willing to take money and look the other way. You were there, you saw it. I ran for the last election. I saw it. What do we do about it? What happens is that the people's will is almost always thwarted to the advantage of the will of the powers that be, the governors, the political investors, the money bags, and all that, because the whole process is open. How many people who took money to do one thing or the other in the field, who you saw are in jail or have been tried publicly to dissuade those who are planning to do that in future? It's neither here nor there. As soon as they are arrested for doing whatever they do, those that sponsored them go behind and get them free. And next time, they will do the same thing again in a worse situation. It is unfortunate, it is painful, but there's nothing visible for now that anybody can do. Some are even beginning to say, hey, why do you call everybody out for an electoral process? Why don't you just appoint people and then spare us all the pains of 3 months of rigorous campaigns, house to house, sometimes up to 2 a.m., 3 a.m. you're on the road, and then the people agree to vote for you, they vote for you, and the vote is recorded for your opponent, simply because your opponent has somebody who is backing him. When will this stop? I don't know, but it reflects in the slow pace of development in Nigeria.
It certainly does, and that's not an unreasonable question that you've just asked. And we all know the limitations of our political process. I can even use the word illegitimacy of our political process with regards to some of the results that we see being announced. But the Supreme Court has always managed to stay above the fray. We have very few institutions that we can point to as being somewhat sacrosanct, and that was always one of them. Even if their decisions are opposed, they're always obeyed without question. And now we have what I have no other term for, but silly season, where every Supreme Court decision is being called into question. What does this really portend for our electoral process? If we have this kind of situation going on, and even the attack on the Odili residents, it's all extremely worrying. What do you think is the next step here? How can the Supreme Court sort of rescue whatever vestige remains of their credibility?
Whoever ordered the invasion of the residence of their lordships, whoever harassed their lordships and sent them to some administrative courts or whatever places they sent them, is the person that laid the foundation for all this. It was not within the contemplation of a living human being in this country that a Supreme Court judge could be invaded, that he could be arrested, that he could be publicly humiliated. When you are doing this, you are derobing a masquerade, the last hope of the common man, at the highest apex of it. So when they derobed the masquerade, the consequences are that people say, hey, oh, so these people can make mistakes now. They are not full and final. We can go there and tell them, my friend, you were wrong. We want you to look at it again. But let me tell you, the Supreme Court is self-protecting. Don't worry about it. Let as many reviews as possible come. They will look at them on their merits. My appeal is that anyone that is frivolous or found to be frivolous, the party that brought the appeal or the review should not be made to pay any less than 500 million naira costs to deter the rest that will come shopping at the Supreme Court and making them look as if they haven't done a thorough job. I said again, every judgment is based on the evidence before the court. And it is the judge, the lawyers that bring this evidence. And they look at the evidence of the appellant and they look at the evidence of the respondent. And they give their judgment based on previous authorities. That is how it has always been. I do not think that the open sesame that has come about now, everybody wanting to go to review themselves, I might as well go back to court and say that my own election should be reviewed. I do not think that it augurs well for us when the confidence of the people is a little bit mellowed down. The Supreme Court should be a place where if you go there and you come out, it is the last, and it should be the last. For us to begin to get ready and say that they committed errors and errors and errors, and will be asked to they'll be asked to review it. I do not think that it is the best. There could be one or two matters that merit a review, and the judiciary, the legal community are waiting to see how the Supreme Court will handle that. But not everything, not everything. I do not think that it is the proper thing to do. To
Certainly.
ask that, if the Supreme Court says that you are a woman, you will go and tell them that you think you are a man. They should look at it again. I think it is I think it is frivolous and vexatious.
Thank you very much, sir.